coming tonight. We're so glad to have you here, and welcome if it's your first time to Village Well. I hope you love it and find reasons to come back. I'm Jennifer, and I opened the shop in 2021 to be a place of welcome, comfort, inspiration, and connection. And there's no better way to do all those things than to have a local author in to share their work with us. And I think we're in for a treat tonight. So we've got two people here. We've got Killian Dunn, the author of the book Dreams in Incarceration, and David Spivey, the subject matter of his book. Killian is from Dublin. He's an investigative storyteller who's written two narrative nonfiction books, and he's at work on his third. This is the second one about David Spivey's life, and David Spivey is a formerly incarcerated gang member who's now a motivational speaker. With over 150,000 YouTube subscribers, he preaches a positivity to those who may follow in his path, and he's also a mental health professional at a hospital just minutes from where he was raised, which is near here, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so he's our neighbor too. So I'm so excited to hear this story told by these two fascinating people. So thank you. Will you join me in giving him a warm welcome?
Thank you very much, Jennifer. And thank you for everybody for coming out. I'm Killian and this is David. And so we'd like to start out lightly by talking about how we met. I moved to LA 4 years ago from Boston, but before that I was in Dublin, if everybody couldn't tell. And, David and I actually met at this fella over here at Connor Hallway's New Year's Eve event. Sadly, not too many people came to it, and David was one of our security guards. David and I just got on really, really well together, and after a little bit of time, I learned about David's past, and I just became completely enamored with his story. And I decided to quit my job and interview him full time and interview several other people to write the book Dreams in Incarceration. And here we are a year later, after it's been released, almost a year later, and things have been really great so far. This is actually our first live talk. We've done a few podcasts, but I'll let David introduce himself and give a little spiel about his background.
Okay, thank you everybody for coming out. David Spivey. I am the subject matter of the book. However, it's a little bit deeper than that. I appreciate that. When I took the job for Connor, my whole thinking was, however you bring the new year in is how your year will be. So I said I might as well make money instead of just going out and partying. And so it was a really, really great idea, and probably one of the best investments I ever made in my life. Met Connor. He was really, really cool. Me and him started talking. It was kind of random, but I took Toastmasters while I was in prison, and so I'm always ready with my elevator speech. And so I'm talking to him. I'm like, this looks like this is like a networking event, so I might as well network while I'm here, right? And so I always, talk to people. That's why live is always better. So I'm talking to Connor, and anytime I talk to people, I always kind of like, well, I do YouTube. And like, oh, you do? And then like having such a high amount of followers or subscribers is kind of like, it always shocks people, like, oh, And I was like, I think at that time I was like at 30,000. And so he looked at my stuff, talked to Killian, and this guy right here, one of the hardest working people I've ever met, he just became like hyper focused on my content. And I remember being invited to a Snake Pit event as a person to get the network instead of just an employee, like somebody that was employed. And I went outside because I kind of get a little anxious around like really, really big crowds of people. I don't really like it. So I was like, let me go outside to the balcony where there were even more people. And I remember Killian hit me up like, yo, Dave, I've been watching all your YouTube videos. I'm obsessed with you. At first I was like, do I need to put a restraining order on this guy? And so he was like, I want to write a book about you. And I'm like, I'm down because my biggest goal, number one, I want to save 1 million people, but I know that you can't do that at once. So I just want to save one person at a time, give them enough knowledge, give them enough encouragement so they can go out and continue the journey. And that's how I'll get to the goal of 1 million people. And then also, I just wanted to redirect and re-narrate the narrative of formerly incarcerated people, because we've all watched movies, including myself, And prior to me making all these horrible decisions that led me to prison, I always thought the same thing that you guys probably thought. These guys go to jail, they come out with a chip on their shoulder, they have this F the world mentality, watch out for them, don't do. And I'm like, I became formerly incarcerated. I'm like, I'm definitely not that person. And I know a slew of other formerly incarcerated people who aren't those people anymore. And so my goal is like to show the world that yes, you can trust those that are formerly incarcerated the same way you can trust a neighbor that you don't fully know everything about. You know, you invite people into your home all the time for a party. You don't know everybody that comes to the party. We don't know everybody that's here, but we're trusting that everybody's okay. And so I wanted to change that, and I wanted to show the world you can trust those that are formerly incarcerated, those who have put in the work and changed their lives. Because a lot of people come out, they haven't changed, they haven't put in the work, so there is no reason to trust them because trust is earned. So that's what I'm doing, one story at a time, one video at a time, one live stream at a time, one conversation at a time. And thank you guys for allowing me to give me the opportunity to show you that as well.
Of course, yeah, and so when we first started talking, I didn't know anything about any of this stuff. I was completely blind, and our connection was more so just like a human connection. I just thought that you were a good lad, and we started this sort of heavy investigative process, is what I say, but it was more so of like a funnel. We started out really wide, just talking about random stuff, like really personal stuff, just, you know, what was your family like, and what are your friends like, and, you know, well, are you going on any dates, like things like that. And then we started to really funnel it down into a lot more specific stuff. So we started to learn a little bit more about each other, I think. But more so, I started to learn about people that are incarcerated, more so people that are formerly incarcerated trying to break out back into the world. It was sort of something that I didn't know anything about, but what I did know was extremely prejudiced. And not to not to downplay it, but you know, people have a really warped view of what prison is like, and I was among that majority. And Dave really opened my eyes, and the one thing that Dave said that really stuck with me was that the same level of brilliance that there is out in society, there is in prison. So if you are looking at it like statistically or fractionally, you know, there are the same amount of really stupid people out in the street as there are in prison, the same amount of really brilliant people as there are out in the street as there is in prison. And Dave really struck me as somebody who just worked insanely hard. So when we started speaking, we started doing this interview process, my initial goal with the book was more so to write like a prison book, and I was just going after it from like a 30,000 foot level overview. But as we started speaking, I realized it was more so an extremely personal thing for Dave. And so I wrote the book in the first person. So I wrote about it from Dave's point of view, and to do that I needed to essentially dig inside of his brain and sort of understand how he thinks and how he feels. And you know, Dave, I'll hand the mic off to you so you can do the actual speaking. I never want to put words in your mouth, but the first thing that I learned was while you were in prison, first of all, just how difficult it was. So your background, you know, you're a former gang member from Inglewood, and you know, you grew up an extremely different life than how I did, and when you went into prison you had to deal with all these things that everybody in this room, for the most part, never had to deal with. How did you, first of all, you know, how did you feel when you first came into prison, and then what was that transitional moment where you sort of realized, I need to change my act and I want to get out of here the right kind of person?
So one thing I always used to tell myself, because my former gang name was Baby Roscoe, and so I always used to talk to myself and I would say, they'll let David out of prison, but Roscoe must die. Like, he's not going to get out of prison. They will only let David out. And so that started the journey, you know. But prior to that, I remember losing trial. And like, that was like, up until that point, that was like the hardest day of my life, the longest day of my life. Because I was like, my mother had just got diagnosed with lupus. And I remember saying to myself, like, dude, if you get found guilty, like, your mom's gonna die. I just knew that. And so when I got sent to prison, December 2nd, 2010, my mother ended up passing away January 18, 2011 from lupus. And so I was sitting there in my cell, crying my eyes out, right? Yeah, gangsters cry. And so I'm sitting there crying my eyes out, and I'm saying to myself, dude, your mom's last years on this earth, you spent in jail behind something that didn't matter, something that is pointless. And so that was the Kickstarter. I'm like, I have to see my mother's grave. I have to get out and I have to just let her know everything that she taught me wasn't a waste. You know, I went wayward It's like the book in the prodigal son. You know, I'm coming home, Mom. My best thing, and I always say my best thing got me squatting in the coffin. For you guys who don't understand what that means, in prison, that's how they search you. They make you squat in the coffin when you're naked. So I always say my best thinking, my most brilliant ideal has me squatting in coffin. So it's obviously time for me to change the way I think. And so I started getting closer to God. I got baptized while I was in Pelican Bay. And then boom, my brother died the next year. And so the same thought came into my mind again. Last year's on this earth, the person he looked up to, the person that could have guided him, let him down. And so I was like, I had to live with that, you know? And so I said, you know what? I have to honor both of them. I have to honor them from the grave. If not, well, I gotta honor them because my mother, she loved me so much to the point that she stretched herself to death after I got life in prison. My little brother loved me so much that he followed into my footsteps into his demise. So it's like, I have to be better now. Then I thought about all the people that I influenced to do wrong. I thought about all the people that I hurt with, little things or things that I thought was little, stealing out of stores, tagging on people's property, a slew of other things. And so that was it for me. So I got closer to God, and then it was when I transferred to Ironwood State Prison from Pelican Bay that this random Asian guy just walked up to me and was like, "Hey, you want to go to college?" And I was like, "No, I don't have money." "What are you talking about, dude?" And he was like, "No, you can get a bog waiver and you can go to college for free." And so I started going to college. Then I started learning a slew of trades. I just wanted to keep myself busy. And so I'll say like the most important day in my prison life was the day I was in a class called Addiction Counseling Program, and one of the facilitators asked, "What made what you did acceptable?" So I tried to raise my hand. He's like, no. Think about this in the cell. And the thing about this class is that if you give like a shallow answer, somebody will call you. They'll say, "Hey, I want to call bullshit on this guy." And I don't like to be embarrassed, so I was like, all right, I don't want to get bullshit called on me. So I'm in the cell, I'm thinking, well, it was the lifestyle. No, that's too shallow. They're gonna call me out on that. Oh, well, it was either me and them. No, that's shallow. And then I had to finally say it, and it was like one of the most heartbreaking things I ever had to admit to myself, that I was selfish. I was very selfish. I didn't love my mom and brother the way I thought I did. I didn't love myself the way I thought I did. Everything I did was just about other people liking me. So I was selfish to those who truly loved me, so that was it. And I was just like, you know what? I gotta change. I gotta be better. I have to be better. Even if I die in prison, I still want to die a better person. I want to die a changed man. I don't want to die the monster that sent me to jail.
And one thing about David's story that just like really, really intrigued me and captivated me was that while all of this was going on, while this sort of transitional mindset period was really undergoing, therein lied the fact that David was still an active gang member. And while you're in these high security prisons in California especially, it's not necessarily easy to do all these things. It's not like you can just say like, all right lads, like I'm gonna go do this, like you do your own thing. It's like, no, you're a unit, you're a team, everybody's with each other, and loyalty is the most important thing. And one thing that really sort of struck me about Dave was that the loyalty never faltered, but he found extremely clever ways to sort of maneuver himself within the prison system so that he would be eligible for parole when the time came, but he was also still extremely loyal to those who were extremely loyal to him. To this day, correct me if I'm wrong, to this day, those same fellas are your best friends. Like, I've been with Dave, like just hanging out normally, and he will get a call from one of these prisons, and Dave will pick up no matter what. He'll speak to them no matter how long. It doesn't matter where we are. Like, we were at a pitch meeting for a documentary, right? These lads were trying to make a documentary about Dave, and he got a call, and Dave basically said, like, hold on, like, zip it. I got to pick this up. And he picked it up, and we talked to this fella for like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
So if you wouldn't mind like telling it, because this was a really interesting thing for me, if you wouldn't mind telling everybody about how you sort of maneuvered yourself so that you were kind of walking that fine line so that you didn't face repercussions of like disassociating from the gang while also striving towards achieving parole and becoming the best person that you can be.
Yeah, so the first thing I did was investigate how to do it. Like, how do you disassociate without, going out, what we would say in prison is like going out backwards, where you got to get beat up and, ran off the yard and go into protective custody. I didn't want that for my story, because I've always wanted, if I was able to get the chance to be free, to speak. And I know like a lot of the kids that I wanted to reach wouldn't have respected somebody that was in protective custody. It's like, shut up. You're only saying this stuff because you're no good. And so I started asking like older gentlemen, hey, how did you break away? You know, and like one of my good buddies, he's a former lifer as well. He told me, just give him a little less time every week. You know, he said, if you're hanging out at the table 4 days a week, just do 3. And then just keep working it down to the point where nobody's missing you. They see you, but they're not missing you. And so I just started like diving into self-help classes so much to where like that took up all of my time. You know, you see, I remember I had a homeboy, he was like, damn, I barely see you, bro. Like, I see you in the morning time at breakfast, then I see you at dinner time, and like, that's it. And I was like, yeah, that's by design. And he was like, that's a good design. He's like, let me see the blueprints. And so, you know, I would get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, clean my cell, get myself ready for work, drink my coffee. Coffee is like super big in prison, just as big as it is in the free world, if not more in there. Like, guys are going crazy. Can I have a shot? Let me have a shot. He's like, all right, dude, here, have this. So I would make my coffee, get ready, get myself together mentally, you know, say my affirmations for the day, go to my vocational class, leave there, go straight to a self-help group, leave that self-help group, go right back to another self-help group, go get dinner, go right to cell. And so I used to take a lot of college classes. At one point, I was going to 2 colleges, and I had 10 courses. And so that was my excuse for not being outside that much. I'm like, I gotta do this homework, gotta do this homework, gotta do this homework. And they're like, oh yeah, I respect that. And then I started bringing my college books into the day room. And then in the day room, that's where everybody plays cards, chess, you know, dominoes. So I started having like a little table where I would just do my homework. I have these college books out, my assignments, and then people would start just coming over there. Man, what are you doing? Oh man, psychology. Oh, this is sociology. You know, and they're like, oh man, how can I get into class? How can I do this? So I started like bringing guys to the college, and we just kind of like, it just like was a trend. You know, they would say on social media, it was a trending topic, do homework in the day room. You know, guys that didn't care about school, now all of a sudden it's like, hey, I got a homework assignment due, can you help me out with it? Or you guys gonna have some room tonight at the table? Like, yeah, sure, come on, man. And so that's pretty much how it started. So I just like, instead of just outright just being like, you guys are idiots, I'm done with this, it's stupid. Because I always say, you don't want to offend nobody. You know, whether it is dumb or not, it's a way, you have to be tactful and everything, you know. I'm pretty sure everybody who's an employee that says something about the boss, but you never say it to the face, right? You know, you're like, oh, this damn job. And it's like, hey, Catherine, oh, hey, how you doing today? You know, you're like, weren't you just talking best about the boss? And so that's the same thing with the gang lifestyle. It's just like, I don't want to make people uncomfortable, you know, but I also do want to make them uncomfortable. I want to be doing so good and be on such a positive tip that those that are on negative vibes, they feel uncomfortable around me, you know? So that's pretty much how it started. That's how everything went.
Yeah, and I would argue that when you read the book, you would feel that discomfort pretty much in every chapter. It was something that was important to me to sort of like correctly portray how David felt, not necessarily like the exact facts of what happened, because I actually heard something a number of years ago where people don't actually remember the facts of an event, they remember how they felt during that event. So when David and I were sort of engaging this interview process, I sort of picked up on the fact that David was talking to me about his feelings a lot more about then this happened and then this happened and this happened. So it's a very like emotionally heavy story. But that being said, David spent 15 years incarcerated in a number of prisons in California, but he got parole and he got released. And I'll defer this to David afterwards, but it's an extremely difficult thing to do, and a lot of work really needs to be done. I would argue that a lot of people that have never been incarcerated couldn't put in this work. I mean, even while David was telling me about it, I just thought, oh my God, like Jesus, like, there I am sitting on the couch watching TV, and there's some fella like doing all this work to really make the situation better. And so I'd love for you to sort of tell everyone about how about your sentence being commuted, and then what it was like to get parole and then get out, and sort of like that specific time in your last year 2 years incarcerated.
So, 2018, I got my sentence commuted by Governor Brown, then Governor Brown. And I remember maybe 3 years prior to that, I had learned about the commutation process, and I was like, I thought like you had to be like some like extraordinary person to get this done. You know, so I started like trying to create self-help, not self-help, but nonprofit organizations to help the at-risk youth, gang deterrent classes. And I was just kind of stressed out for a while, because I'm like, who the hell's gonna commute my sentence? You know, like who am I? I don't, my family isn't some big name family. We can't donate to anybody's campaign. But I had a spark of hope. And if any of you guys know anything about hope, humans can live off hope for millions of years. You know, if you think it's gonna get better, you'll keep pushing for it. I mean, we all seen Gilligan's Island, you know. They had hope and they kept going, right? And so that was me. And I was just like, all right, I gotta just do something. I gotta figure something out. And so I remember going to court for a Franklin hearing. They just passed a law to allow youth offenders to set the record for the upcoming board, which however long that one may be, mine was like another 15 years away. And so I remember going to court, and I had a paralegal working for my attorney, and she was like, dude, I looked at your CFAL, like you're one of the people that they want to let go home. She's like, is there anything that can stop you? And I'm like, no. But in my head, I'm like, yeah, I know exactly what can stop me, and so I have to make a decision. And so the decision for me was to be, I gotta go back and I gotta tell these dudes, I gotta walk this yard by myself. I gotta be my own man. I can't be associated with the crowd anymore, you know? And I remember reading the newspaper and I was seeing all these sentences had been commuted. And I remember telling my a friend at the time, I said, I'm gonna be in that paper next year. You know, I'm really big on manifestation. And so I'm like, I'm gonna be in that paper next year. I don't know how, I don't know what would the reason be that they would want to do that for me, but I'm gonna speak it into existence. And so go back to prison. That's one of my buddies right there from prison, formerly incarcerated lifer. And I landed on the yard with him and two of my other really good friends. And these guys like pressured me about putting in the paper for a commutation. Like, did you put it in yet? I'm like, no, I'm gonna do it. They're like, man, you need to do it. I'm like, damn, you guys gonna jump me if I don't do this or something? And so I was like, you know, and so, he's probably serious too. No, but I put it in the paper, and I remember spending hours and hours for weeks, you know, filling out this paper, writing letters, writing insight papers, like showing. I wanted to show the governor and his team, like, I have really, really deep insight, and I have a very authentic remorse for my actions. And thank God the governor's team saw that. I was interviewed by an investigator for the BPH, which is Board of Prison Hearings. And when before I left out, she told me, she said, if it was up to me right now, I would just release you. And I was like, that touched my heart. And so that was a very stressful time, waiting to see if I was gonna get my sentence commuted. One guy got his commuted, and I was like sad. I was happy for him, but I was sad, and I was like, well, I would have thought they would have did all of us on the yard at the same time. Like, I don't think they're gonna do me. And then like the governor was kind of trending on like major holidays. So Thanksgiving came around, no. I was like, and he finally did it around Christmas, you know, and that felt like this 10,000-pound gorilla finally got off my chest. But then another one came and sat on it, because now I got to get ready for the parole board. And California has a notorious prison hearings, Board of Prison Hearings. Like, they want so much, which is great because it lets you guys know. And for you guys who don't know about this system, they vet you extremely hard. Like, you have to know so much about your crime, about your lifestyle, the choices you made. You have to have things set up for if you're paroled, how would you handle yourself in a high-risk situation? You have to know your triggers, your warning signs. And so I'm like, okay, I need to learn. I need to like be able to, I know these things, but now, you know, like sometimes when you feel like the pressure's on, your brain just says, you're on your own, figure it out. And so my brain did that. And so like hours and hours, I would stay up to like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, just writing stuff down and pacing my cell and going over different things. And the first time I went to parole board, I actually thought I was gonna get granted parole, and they denied me for 3 years. They said that my gang ties were still kind of recent for them, and they wanted to see how I was gonna do. And so I was honest with myself. I said, you know what, David, there are a few things about yourself you need to work on before you re-enter society. Because I feel like one of the worst things you can do after having a life sentence and being granted parole is to do anything that goes backwards. You know, you mess up the opportunity for so many other people who are really, really putting in the work and you know, earn the opportunity to be here. You know, you taint people's minds when you come out and then you do something, because what is the news gonna say? Formerly incarcerated David Spivey robbed the bank. You're like, he should have stayed locked up. They should have never let him out. Let's make more harsher laws. And so that was like really big. So I told myself, like, I need some more work. You know, I need more work done. And when I went to board the second time, I thought I was not gonna get paroled. The commissioner I had, you know, shout out Michelle Miner, because she grilled me. And it actually like made me stronger mentally. But I was like, I don't think she's gonna parole me, you know. I'm in board, she's sitting there folding her hands up, looking at me like this. And when they came back with the granted, I was like, 1 second. I just put my head down. I was just like, that's like, it's a lot. You know, you hope to get released, but then when they tell you you're gonna be released, you think about like, okay, I'm about to have to start my entire life over with $200. You know, there's a huge gap in my work history, you know, and so I'm just thinking about all these things. Like, when I left society, the most popular cell phone was a Boost Mobile or a Nextel Chirp, you know, hey, where you at? You know, so now people are walking around with computers in their hand. I'm like, I don't, you know, and then life is just so fast paced in society. I'm so used to, I always call it false respect, because it's in prison, you know, people say, oh, you know, you gotta show respect. That's not real respect. You know, it's actually fear, you know. And so now I have to come back to society where people don't have the respect to say, hey, I'm walking on the left side of you. Hey, I'm right behind you. Excuse me. You know, people are trying to just get from A to B. And so that had to be something that I had to learn. So my last 2 years in prison was just spent working on the small things. You know, like when you look at these big, like you look at this bookshelf, you know, it's the little tiny screws that really kind of hold everything together. The ones nobody ever sees. And so I had to work on those ones. I had to get those screws tightened up for myself. And I remember every day after I did get granted parole, you have to wait 150 days before they release you. And so, well, they have up to 150 days. So every single day, I would tell myself, don't believe the fake love. When you get out of jail, everybody is gonna pretend like they missed you so much and they're so happy you're here. Don't believe it. Because for 15 years you're in the same place and they didn't show you no love. So every single day I would tell myself that. And when I got out, the fake love came. Oh, I'm so happy. No, you're not. Hey, can I hang out with you? Meet me at the gym. Nobody wants to go to the gym, right? Especially somebody who's gangbanging and doing drugs all day and drinking. That you're not gonna meet me at the gym. So that was my way of disassociating in society. Hey, meet me at the gym if you want to hang out. Oh, yeah, okay. Of course, it's not coming. So that the last 2 years just was getting all the tiny screws together and making sure that everything that I had been working hard for stuck together and it manifested into what I wanted to be.
Yeah. And if you couldn't tell, there's an incredible resilience that's associated with all of this. It's not like, none of this stuff is easy by any means whatsoever. And for me anyway, as the author, I had to find areas that I could sort of understand and associate with, and just the sheer will to get out, and the intention of every action that he did was something that I could relate to. And it really is just all about like understanding who you are, what you've done, and knowing that you deserve better, and doing everything the correct way to get yourself out of the situation. So in its most simplest form, I mean, what Dave did was he completely shifted his mindset to turn himself into a different person, but for the better, but still the same person obviously, but for the better. And when David got out, we spoke about this a lot, and it's not in the book. Candidly, I wanted to focus on David's prison experience because, in my opinion, there haven't been too many stories that have been, you know, super like hyper focused on someone's mentality while in prison, specifically somebody who is formerly gang affiliated. When it comes to that loyalty, when it comes to that sort of like tradition, especially in California state prisons, it doesn't seem to be something that people just like leave, like how Dave did. Dave left the right way, and Dave did everything the correct way. But when Dave got out, like you said, he would ask people to meet him in the gym, and you know he essentially weeded out the people that were toxic in his life. We have been doing sort of a lot of work in the prison education community in the last year, specifically in the last 6 months. We've been speaking with this organization called Project Rebound. They're in 18 different universities in California. We're actually giving a guest lecture at San Francisco State next week about this same spiel, so it should be really good. But there is sort of an area here where a lot of people don't really like have a lot of knowledge about. And David is somebody who is extremely cognizant of sort of everything that he did and everything and why everything is important. So I'd love to sort of transition to what life has been like while you've gotten out and how you feel about like anti-recidivism, like because the recidivism rate in California is like 67% or something crazy. It's like 2/3 of people that went to prison are back in prison at some point in their lives. Like that's a horrible figure, and that's not on the person, that's on the institution. And the institution knows that. You know, we spoke with like San Quentin and a bunch of other prisons, and there's an actual initiative going on where specifically California, the CDCR, they're trying to model their system off of the way Norway does their stuff. And like they obviously, if you've ever seen like memes on Instagram of like a Norwegian jail cell, it's nicer than where I live, honestly. Like it's absolutely beautiful. Like they have TVs and all, like, you know, it looks lovely, but at its core, it really just it's treating incarcerated people differently than how they have been treated in the past. So I'd love for you to tell everybody about sort of what it's been like for us doing that, and then also how you feel about formerly incarcerated people really working to like make their lives better and how difficult that can be.
So for me, it was, I mean, I'm getting out as an adult, but kind of like a baby. You know, I'm entering society as an adult, and I have no experience in society as an adult. All my adult years were incarcerated. So the things that, I mean, I'm 36, I just turned 36 in August, and I'm learning stuff now that most people were learning in their 20s. You know, so, and also I suffered from depression really bad. If you guys check out my YouTube channel, I actually record one of my depressive episodes. And so for me, you know, I used to be depressed a lot when I got home because I just felt like I was so far back. You know, here I am trying to be in this race and everybody's, you know, their 5th lap and I just started. And I'm trying to win, you know, and so that was really difficult, you know, and then also, but I want to say the best part about being back in society was being able to prove and show to those who love me that I ain't the same person. You know, my sister, she was like, which is her right here. What's up, Dana? She was like, yeah, I kind of was, you know, hesitant on, you know, reconnecting with you because I didn't know if you were still in the same tip. And once you showed me that, you know, like open arms. And so for me, that was the best part. Just showing everybody like, it wasn't just prison talk. It wasn't just the sad blues. It wasn't just, oh, I want to do better because I'm in jail. And I promise you guys, like, no, I want to show you like everything I said, I'm backing up. And so that was like the greatest part of being back out for me, especially because I made a promise to my mother, you know, may God rest her soul. And I said, Mom, I'm going to be the man that you always believed I could be. I'm gonna be responsible. I'm gonna be respectful. I'm gonna be accountable. I'm gonna do life the right way this time. You know, I'm not gonna be moved by external forces. Like, I'm building up my internal system so strong to where I can't be peer pressure into anything. You know, hey man, no, nothing. You know, and so getting out of jail at 32 years old was difficult, but it's a journey I wouldn't trade for the world. You know. And then dealing with going back into the prison educational system. There's so many guys and men and women inside that just need somebody to kind of help, just to show them this is real. You can do this. You know, You gotta want it though. You know, it's just like anything. If you want a job, you want a house, you want whatever it is, you have to put in the work. You can't just say, I want a Bentley, and you close your eyes 3 times and wake up, it's like, there it is. No, you gotta work. You gotta get a good credit score. You gotta have a great job. You gotta be able to upkeep the car. And that's the same thing with life. If you want better for yourself, you gotta do better. You can't just wanna go home and then you're getting write-ups here, write-ups there. You still, you know, attacking people. No, it's not true. And so I wanna show people, and that's one of my biggest goals as well, just to show these men and women, look, if you put in the work for yourself, if you put in the same amount of work that you use to go to prison, you can get out of prison and stay out of prison. You know, because as we used to say in Criminals and Gang Anonymous, any fool can luck up and get out of jail. But only a man or a woman who is determined can stay out of jail. And so that's one of my biggest goals in educating civilians as well as prisoners. You have to want this. And this is how you can do it. This is the blueprint. It's up to you whether you do or you don't follow it. And so with going to the colleges, people vote, right? And people vote based off of the education they have about whatever the topic may be. So my thing is, if I can show, if I can teach, if I can educate people that not everybody, yes, everybody that is inside made horrible decisions, but everybody does not remain horrible. You know, well, I'm not gonna say we've all, but everybody done something in their life that they're not proud of. It might not be the extreme as mine, but I wish I could take that day back. I wish I could take that hour back. You know, and the same way you wish that there's men and women in prison right now who wish they could take those times back, and who have put in the work to make sure that they don't relive those times or just reoffend. You know, one of my biggest things is like, I regret what I've done so much to where like, I don't want any semblance of who I used to be seen. Like most people say, I would have never thought you were in prison. I say, that's by design. You should not know that I've, just based on talking to me or looking at me, you shouldn't say, he definitely like he's been in prison. You know, that's another reason why like I didn't do the tattoos all on my hands and throat and, you know, the crazy teardrops. I was like, one day I'm gonna get out of jail. And I remember I had a cellie. He was like, you should get the hood tatted on your throat. And I was like, no. I'm like, he's like, why not? I'm like, who gets a mansion and tags on it? You know, like that's stupid. You don't imagine you just buy your first home and you're like, I think we should put some graffiti on the front of the house. He's like, no, you stay away from this house, please. And so that was me. I was like, you know what? Every day I woke up, every day I was, even when I was asleep, I used to sleep about getting out of jail. And I just used every single moment that I had to always think about it. You know, I was obsessed with getting out, but not just getting out, but staying out and being a better person and showing the world you can make horrible decisions and you can still become a better person.
And Dave just touched on this here, but it was that manifestation in the moments where he was alone, where I sort of found like an avenue to like really tell a story. So the book is called Dreams of Incarceration, and every other chapter is focused on a dream, but really more so a nightmare in the first, 2/3 of the book, because it just sort of represented how he was feeling. There's a certain stoicism, from my understanding, of men in prison, where you can't necessarily show the emotions that you're feeling, especially when you're really going through hard times. Like David lost his mom and his little brother while he was in prison, and that's, for any one of us, like, geez, you'd be crying like the second you heard it, but you're surrounded by all the stoicism, and you just can't do it. So that sort of manifests in your dreams, and at least that's how I understood it. I did interview a prison psychologist to speak about this, and she sort of confirmed that is it's a regular occurrence. And that being said, when you read the book, you'll find that over time, David's psychology changes at various milestones in his prison experience, and by the time that he's getting out, there's a certain exhaustion that you'll feel, but the exhaustion isn't an exhaustion for life, it's an exhaustion for like a previous life. So David, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you were exhausted with the way that you used to do things, and you wanted something fresh and something more for yourself. So I would encourage you to read the books so that you could understand David's emotions and these milestones a little bit further. But to sort of, before our Q&A, to sort of wrap things up, I would like to sort of touch on one final thing here that we kind of spoke about, but like in the nature of this resilience, you know, what David has gone through is what a lot of people are going through. Like there are so many incarcerated people in the United States that really aren't getting like this light shown on them, and they're still sort of being viewed as this horrible person even when they get out. And it's like, imagine waking up every single day and, you know, the first thing you hear is that you're a piece of shit. Like, you know, pardon my French, I'm Irish, but like, imagine being told that, like, and that's what like society says, like, and still being able to break through that barrier. So, one, like the biggest intention that I had with this book anyway is to like sort of educate that the people that are incarcerated and the people that get out of jail, get out of prison and are labeled as formerly incarcerated, they're still people. And just because somebody did something bad doesn't mean that they're a bad person, and that is the theme that runs through the entire book. But I think, should we open it to Q&A, or do you want to say anything else?
Let's open it up.
Cool.
I just wanted to, I have a question for each of you. So I think since you finished about how you structured the book, what made you choose that narrative device with the dreams? I'm sure you were faced with a lot of choices on how to tell this powerful story. And with that choice, what did you want the reader to take away from it?
So when David and I first started interviewing, I knew about his life story from like a very high level overview. And as we were speaking, I noticed that a lot of the sort of incredibly like emotional sort of stories that David would tell were all when he was like by himself, like in his cell. And so I started thinking to myself, like, how would I feel if that were me? And then I just asked him, I was like, you know, you kind of spend a lot of time, you know, it sounds stupid to say now, Jesus, in retrospect, but in isolation, like you spend a lot of time in isolation, but what does that do to the mind? And I sort of just opened that up to David, and Dave just had these very specific stories and these very specific like emotions that he was telling me about. So I ran it by him first. I said, listen, I have this idea to sort of do every other chapter as a dream or as a nightmare to sort of exemplify like your feelings in certain situations. And and he said, do it, like that's a good idea. I've got plenty of stories and that kind of stuff. And just so happened that the dreams and nightmares that Dave did remember, that he was able to relate to me in pretty good detail, just so happened to like perfectly line up with sort of like the plot, or at least like his experience like over the years. And in my opinion anyway, it made the book a lot stronger. And like I said about the stoicism, it's like what you like, because the book is told from Dave's point of view, it's not like in dialogue he can say like to one of his buddies, like, I'm feeling sad. It's like I just decided to show that in the next chapter in a dream that he was experiencing. And that was the intention behind it.
That sounds really can't
Thank you.
And just quickly, I don't want to take up all the questions, but Dave, so you know, what I'm taking away from your story is that, you know, the way that you're telling it now is, you know, you're a leader, obviously, and you want to set a good example. But did you always, even when you're in the gang, have these leadership qualities and this need to want to lead people and be an example, or is this something that you discovered as you grew up, and if so, then at what point?
So I've always been very alpha. So even within the gang, I was a leader. I wasn't the gang leader, you know, but I always had some type of influence. Wherever I was going, my opinion mattered. So I just, like everything that I do now, I just take from what I was doing and just do it in a positive. When I was teaching criminal gang anonymous in prison, I used to tell all the guys, I say, you guys have all the qualities to be successful. You know how to be extremely loyal. You know how to be dedicated. You're determined. You know, you just switch it up. Stop being loyal to this. Be loyal to yourself. Be loyal to being a great person. Change your beliefs, because I had a lot of warped beliefs that I had to change. And so, like, the beauty of it was when I was able to equate the two. Like, these are only bad belief systems because of what they represent. So if I switch my direction and be on pro-social living instead of anti-social, I can be very successful. So that's what it was.
It's that kind of power that came with, like, you know, that sort of
No, not for me, because it's like, I mean, what I'm doing now, I'm still influencing people, you know, but for the great. So do I miss influencing people to be negative and destructive? Never.
Yep.
I'm just curious, do you feel like, well, reflecting back on it, because there, some initiatives of like, do certain people like, do they need to go to prison, do you go to jail, they're like alternatives to, kind of put people back on the right path. Do you feel, looking back, that going to prison was what you needed to go through? And if you, talk about that, and then following up on that, because you did go to prison and did all this work to come out and lead a fairly successful life for yourself, did you feel like you did have enough resources while you're in prison, and were they like as readily as accessible? Because for you, it seems like you went out and found every single opportunity for yourself to make yourself better, but are they actually like as accessible? Like, do people, other inmates, they believe like, oh yeah, I can just go do that, and that's what I need to do, and you really have to like search to find those opportunities for yourself to be better?
So for myself, I always say, and I hate to have to admit it, but it's like, I did need prison to change. Because I was so far gone with my belief system, like I was an extremist. Like I wholeheartedly believe in my neighborhood. I thought we were the greatest thing since the Roman Empire. I'm like, yes, everybody must bow down and hail us. So prison was something that God knew that I needed to humble myself. And it was through that humbling process that I was able to even want to see the light. I lived in the dark so much that I thought it was normal. I tell people all the time, my belief system was so warped. Everything that was wrong seemed right to me, and everything that was right was wrong. David, go to school. Oh no, that's dumb. I need to be in the hood. David, don't do. I think I need to do that. I think I do need to do that. So going in prison and then losing my mother and my brother, it was like that shock. It was the shock that like brought me back to life, as I'll say, because I was walking dead. When you live in that type of lifestyle and those are the beliefs that you have, you're basically a zombie. You're not a human anymore. You start becoming a beast, to the point where you lose your humanity. So that was the shock that woke me up and, revitalized my life. And so while I was in prison, there are a lot of groups, but it's just like anything in life. I mean, you guys all been in society your whole life. If you want better for yourself, you have to go out and find it. You can't open up the door and a job is right there offered to you. You can't just say, you can't go to college and just say, I want to be on the dean's list, and you're not studying. You have to study. You have to not go to this party. You have to go to these study sessions. You have to ask for it too. So it's basically all up on you. And the thing about prison is like there's this huge spirit of depression over it. A lot of guys are like, a lot of the violence that you guys hear about in prison is just because there's a whole bunch of depressed guys who can't say that they're depressed. You look weak. If I walk out to the yard and what's up with it? Man, cuz I'm depressed. Oh, he gotta go. He might get soft. So you have to deal with this on your own. And so the fact that you have to deal with it on your own, and if you want better, you have to go out and search. And your social group is very important. Like I said, my buddy Lawrence back there, he was very influential. And you just have to create a circle of positivity around you, because if not, then it is really, really unbearable. And a lot of guys don't have the courage to want to step away from the crowd. It's a herd mentality. And so it's like, well, if I step outside the herd, then I'm noticed. Everybody sees me. So it's easy to just keep on being a lemur, just walking all the way past the cliff because you've seen another guy walk off the cliff. So you just follow him into your demise. So yeah, I would say that there are things that are readily available, but for those who really, really want it, they go the extra mile. Like my first self-help class in a group that I ever got into, I asked to be in it. I just happened to hear a conversation. I was in the law library and they were talking about a group, which is the ACP class. And I just turned around, can I get that class? They were like, well, there's a wait list. I'm like, well, you guys are doing the list now. Like, can you just put me in? Like, I'm very enthused. Like, I want to be in this. And so it started it for me. And because when I was in that self-help group, I talked to the lady who was running all the self-help groups. And I said, can you put me in all the self-help classes? And she was like, sure. And so that was it. But I had to want to do it. I could have heard them say that and just been like, I'll wait.
Thank you, Sherry.
You're welcome. Anybody else?
Thank you so much. I have two questions. One about the anti-recidivism
So if I could wave a magic wand, I would just say mentality. You know, because if you guys like meet a lot of people in prison, you'll see a lot of guys, or a lot of men and women in prison. They come from they come from good families. They come from loving families. Everybody thinks like, oh, everybody who's incarcerated, they didn't have a, no. It's the mentality that that person decided to take it on themselves. So if I could wave a magic wand, it would just be mentality. Like, believe in yourself. You know, because a lot of people join gangs because they don't believe in themselves. You know, a lot of people need the crowd to feel powerful, to feel loved, to feel accepted. But you had it in the house. You know, most kids go through these rebellious states, and like a lot of them aren't as bad as mine was, but there are a lot of people who did take the same path as I did, because we all been kidded for it. Everybody always thought their parents don't know what they're talking about. You know, everybody always acted as if their parents were just born adults. They're like, Mom, you don't understand what I'm going through. Like, yeah, I was 13 too before. So I would just change the mentality, because you can have, there's people who go back to jail with all of the resources available to them. So it's not the resources, it's the mentality. The person has to want to do it. I mean, it's just like that. If you want to lose weight, you have to start having that mentality that I'm not going to eat this burger tonight. I'm not going to have 3 shakes. You got to say, well, you know what? I really want this shake, but I'm going to just do this lemon with water. You have to, it's just all about you.
And from like an institutional perspective, from what we've learned from speaking with, you know, Project Rebound is just one of them. We've spoken with like Brilliance Inside and the ARC, that's the Anti-Recidivism Coalition. A lot of it is really just based on how the institution treats people. So right now it is a little bit, traditionally it's been a little bit harsh, you know, you could say that. But now, instead of like punishing people, it's more so like, okay, like leading them in the right direction. So the mindset thing is, it's like filtered down from the top, if that makes sense. It's more so like an institutional change that's not going to happen overnight, but it's something that they're trying to do at the highest levels, so that literally, like from the warden to the guards, that these incarcerated people are being treated differently, and not like they're, you know, not like they're arseholes, like they're, you know, being treated like actual human beings, for lack of a better way to put it. But that's really the way it is. It's like being treated like human beings that have feelings and that want to actually get better, because from my understanding, everybody does. It's just sometimes like there's the sort of atmosphere that it's like, you're here, like you're stuck here, and that's trying, you know, that's the thing that people are trying to change.
I just want to share, if you can share a little bit about the mixture of, I have a son due to mental health, ended up in prison. Wrong, but he did, misdemeanor. He told somebody, I want to kill you, because he was upset, right? So he's in prison or jail. Is there a gang within the jail, like gangs also, or a level of control, I should say? Because I would talk to him on the phone a lot, and he was very fearful, and he said, you know, if you had too many snacks, it wasn't good. You know, there was how do you divide or share, like, you know, are they separated out, like the mental health with regular?
The different levels of security.
You know, he kept saying there's a level of, like, level of his leadership and control, but you couldn't have too many snacks, you couldn't do this, and so are they all, everyone's separated out in some way? Just talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So one thing I can say, like anybody who's ever been to California prisons, they know that it's gang culture. You know, even in the protective custody, you would think that, you know, the guys who said they can't be on the main line would just do good, but they even have prison gangs on that side. You know, so everything is just controlled. California is controlled through violence, and so they do have different levels of prison. You know, I started off at a level 4 180, which is the most maximum security prison in Pelican Bay, and then you start doing well, you start dropping points, and so you start going down levels. I thought level 3, and I ended up going to a level 1, and the lower the level, the more open it is. But sometimes it's not always good for people, you know, because it's a cesspool. Not all, but you know, if I'm gonna be honest, like it's predator and prey. You know, people are always just looking for who can they take advantage of, you know. And unfortunately, it's something that the guards allow to happen, you know, because a lot of the stuff that goes on can easily be stopped, but nobody wants to, because if the prisoners are focused on each other, they'll never have to look at the guards and focus on them. So it's kind of like, let them keep doing this so they never look at us and realize it's more prisoners than it is guards, you know. So and then with the mental health, they have yards that are specifically for those who are suffering from mental disease. And you can also write a letter too to try to get them closer or whatever it may be, because they have prisons that are closer to Southern California or to this region. I would try to get them to Lancaster. They have an honor yard, and so that yard is based on, if you get a write-up, they kick you off the yard. So it's like people who really want to do well for themselves. So I would try to get them in Lancaster.
Yeah, and if you want to speak to us afterwards, they're a little bit more, of course.
Yes, ma'am.
You talked about a little bit about when you left the prison. What was that process like? You said you had $200 and you said don't trust. I can't remember the expression. Don't believe the people who I'm so happy to see you. What was that like? What was the process from the prison side to when you got?
So I remember the day I was getting released. It was kind of scary because they had my wrong social number in my file, and I just started panicking. I'm like, I didn't know what I was like. They not about to keep me another day. They not. I'm like, dude. I'm like, Dad. I'm like, I think that's my dad's social. And he's like, hold on 1 second. We got to make some calls. I'm like, I'm bolting for the door. I don't care. And even though I wouldn't have went nowhere, but that was really scary. But then I remember the first time getting in the cop car without being handcuffed, and that was like a different experience. And I'm just looking at, we had to drive to Reno, and so went to the bus station. You know, I'm ordering, getting my ticket. I'm just kind of like shell shocked. Like, dude, I'm back in society. Like, this is wild. Like, there's nobody watching me right now. And I remember we stopped in some little small town, and I remember walking to go to the store, and somebody just waved at me. And like, they brought like the biggest smile on my face. And I was just like, they have no idea, and that's great. You know, like, I'm being welcomed back to society. It was a beautiful feeling. Yes, ma'am.
So there's no preparation from the prison side of, you know, like, I'm a social worker. So like when you leave a hospital, there's an entire discharge plan that they look at different kinds of things and resources and how you're going to be, you know, supported on the outside depending on what you were in for. Nothing like that.
No, so everything that you do, you have to do it on your own. So like me, I had to write transitional houses to see if I could be accepted into them, you know. So they don't, because I work in a hospital too. I work in a psychiatric hospital, and so we have a discharge planner team come and try to help the patients out. But yeah, it's nothing like that. You go to R&R, they give you a prepaid credit card with $200, and they tell you, get it how you live, basically.
There's a somewhat new initiative that isn't in place, but it's, from what I've learned, is becoming a little bit more common, is that when people are facing trials, so when they essentially know that they're guilty and that they are going to serve time, they develop a release plan. So that's the intention is they give it to their case manager so that they understand what your motivations are, or what you say you're going to do while you're inside, and then if you stick to that, sometimes that sort of gets you a little bit of goodwill and, you know, helps you out. But that's sort of like a new initiative, and it's sort of being tested out, you could say.
Gentleman in the back.
Can you pinpoint a moment in prison that you was able to overcome that allowed you to be out in society, overcome whatever roadblock you faced with? You know what I mean?
Sure. So I remember the day that I had to make the decision, like, to call a meeting on the yard, which is get like all my homeboys together and let them know that I'm no longer gonna be rolling with you guys. Like, I'm gonna do this on my own. I remember that night. It was like a very stressful night for me. Like, I could not sleep. I tossed and turned. I got on my knees and prayed for God to give me the strength. And I remember watching Joel Osteen. I had the TV on, and Joel Osteen spoke. And it was so ironic that he used the letters R and C, which was the letters of my former neighborhood. And he was like, you know, sometimes you can start at R and then God brings you back to C. And I was just like, okay, God, I know you got me there. And so I thought about that. And so, like, but even then, you know, as much as you believe in God, it's like, well, God is like not physically right here to stop all these dudes in case they might want to try to attack me or anything like that. But I hope he maybe give me the Hercules strength in case they do. But I called everybody to the table, and I was just like, look, man, I'm choosing me. Like, I gotta go home, bro. Like, I can no longer like give my assistance to you. I can no longer plead my allegiance and my loyalty to you guys. And so the reason why that was very important, because like when I got out of prison, I had to have already had that experience of being a loner, not having a group, not having a crowd, not having a whole bunch of people to run to, you know. And so it allowed me to start making more cautious decisions, being more conscious of the way I dress, the way I speak. You know, I love baseball hats, but I make sure that none of my hats can represent any type of gang. It can't even be mistaken. I only wear Lakers, Dodgers, and Philadelphia Eagle hats. That's right. That is your question, sir? Okay. Yes, sir. Yeah, after I was released, I think maybe I've had a couple like nightmares, and they were just about going back to jail. Yeah, that was like really, really scary. Matter of fact, like 2 weeks ago, I had a dream and I was drunk. I don't know what happened, but I just remember like being in a cop car and I was like, I just was bawling. So like that, I mean, cause I don't want to go back inside for anything, like unless it's just to speak, you know, cause I did go back inside Iowa State Prison and speak to the incarcerated guys. You know, it was a moment of hope. And so actually we made history. It was the most former lifers that returned to the prison that they were all at. So yeah, they did. I mean, now I'm just having dreams of like grandeur, you know, like, which wakes me up to like keep going, keep going, keep going, you know. That answer? Okay, cool.
You said you got a depression. In that American community, it's really hard for men to admit the fact that they got a depression and seek help. What helped you determine or move forward to getting help and be able to speak openly about having depression?
So my biggest thing is, like I said, I want to help kids, you know, and so I know how hard it is, especially in the African American community, to admit having any type of mental disease. And so what made me speak about it is because I wanted to show people you're not weak because you are suffering from a mental disease. In fact, if you can talk about it, that makes you much stronger than dealing with it on your own. And it doesn't even matter what, you know, ethnicity group you are, because in every type of culture, like, especially for men, you know, men are raised, especially in this country, you got to be tough all the time. You cannot cry. You know, when you're a kid, they tell you, stop crying like a little girl. And, you know, that mentally affects people to the point where when they do get older, it's hard to say, hey, I'm suffering from suffering from a mental disease. I'm suffering from depression. I have an anxiety disorder. So for me, I felt like it was a necessary thing to do because of the platform that I had been granted. And so I said, well, you know what? The same way I'm battling this, because I battled it a long time by myself. I only cry when I'm on by myself. I would never let anybody else see me cry. I never told my aunt. I never told my ex-girlfriend at that time. I never told anybody that this is the things I was going through. You know, I would just say sometimes I need a little bit of space. You know, and when you say that, people truly don't really give you the space because they think, oh, you're just trying to be distant. And it's like, no, I'm battling a mental disease and I don't really know how to ask for help. And so I remember the day that I had that really, really bad episode, I had a breakdown while I was at work. And I said, you know what, let me record it. Because this video can help somebody. You know, it can, especially now that I work in the psych unit, behavioral health, you see so many people that if they had somebody to show them that you can still be productive and live, you don't have to drown yourself out with drugs and alcohol, that you could beat, like, I always say beat it. You can beat it the same way you can beat other diseases. I look at mental health the same way. You know, for me, I had enough coping skills, and then also had the courage after a long time to be able to talk to people about it and tell them, this is what I'm going through. You know, I can pick up the phone and call, like my friend Lawrence back here, I can call him and say, man, I'm going through this today, bro. And he could help me through that. And so that's how I got into it, and that's why I was able to record that video, because I know for a fact there's at least one person, whether it's a man or a woman, whether it's African American, Caucasian, whatever it may be, or whomever they may be, that need to hear that so they can know you're not alone. Because a lot of times we think that we are the only people suffering from anything. And I just wanted people to know you're not alone. You're not alone. Did I answer your question? Okay. Anybody else? Oh.
Obviously you do a lot of outreach, speak to want to focus on like helping youth. But are there any like initiatives that you would hope to see that they'll like instate even over like slowly over time that would help people like you get out, and also when they get out, like make that transition a little bit easier, or literally just anything that you would hope to see like in the future to be instated to help people like you do what you do?
Yeah, definitely. Great question too. Like I said, you get out of, it doesn't matter how much time you serve, you get out with $200. And if you don't have family support, I mean, come on, you guys, what if $200? You know, and part of that money you have to use to get home. So you don't even have $200 by the time you get back to where you live or where you're gonna live. So I would definitely like to see like, and that's another reason why there's a high recidivism rate, because how do you tell a person to start their life over after 20 years of incarceration with a $200? I mean, a burger now costs us $20. You know, it's like, you know, I'm like, give me half a burger or something, you know? But I just think that it needs to be looked at, because, and it's kind of tricky too, because it's like you don't want to give money to a lot of people that may not do what's right. But I think that there need to be programs, there need to be more job availability. I mean, I had tried to get a job with the mayor, and it was like, no, you know, because of my background. But it's like, I'm not the background anymore. So it's like, if we're gonna ask people to come back to society and be productive, then we have to allow them to be productive. We can't say, and that goes with everybody in this room, you know, we can't say, oh, we want these men and women to come out here and be productive, but we're not gonna give them any opportunities. Like, we're gonna put up all these brick walls, then we're gonna put vaults around them, then we're gonna put an electric gate, then we're gonna get like 10 German Shepherds and Doberman Pinschers, and if they can get through all that, then we'll help them. So it's like, if the more of the opportunity that you close, the more that you make society unsafe. Because if a person can't fend for himself, they're gonna fend for themselves, like if they can't fend for themselves in a pro-social way, then they're gonna go back to what they know. And so that may be, oh, this bookstore doesn't have security, let's run up in here, because there's no other ways to get money. So we need to be able to allow people to right their wrongs, not hold it against them forever. The same way, if you were in an accident and you were the person that hit somebody's car, would you want the insurance to hold that against you for the rest of your life? No. And so, and I know that crime and that is not the same, but it's the mindset of it. If we're gonna have people come back to society and be productive, then we have to allow them the opportunity to be productive.
Do you think it would have been easier, because I know you said that you had to do a lot of research on your own to like try to find housing, try to find employment. Do you think it would have been better if you had like resources available, like a career coach or like someone to help you like coordinate with that housing instead of having to try to figure out everything on your own? Because like you said, like multiple years pass, like the world's changed. Like how are you supposed to figure out how to integrate yourself into the world that you haven't been a part of?
Correct, and she's on fire. Remind me of the video game NBA Jam. She's on fire. And so, I mean, especially working in the hospital, like before we discharge patients, we have a whole team to help them, and that definitely needs to be adopted in the prison system, because like I said, you're telling somebody who, like I went to jail at 17 years old, you know, so I definitely didn't know too much about anything. And then especially now in this electronic world, you got everything's, can I get a job here? Click the link. It's like, the link? You can't just go give me a piece of paper and I can just, no, you gotta hit the QR code. You're like, what the heck is a QR code? I just was in jail, I don't know any. So I think having a team of people to help the transition into going back to society, like coming up with a plan, helping with housing, having some job availability, You know, not to say, get out and just try to find some stuff. They have some really cool organizations that'll help you. It's like, well, I don't even know how to use the internet that well. So, you know, when I was growing up, if you needed to find a number, you went to the yellow pages, or you dialed 411, even if though my mom used to say, stop dialing 411, they charging me, but that's all we had. And now it's like, everything is like right here to touch your hand, but if you don't know how to use it, it's basically like you don't have it. You're welcome. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, no, I got right kind of like as it was starting to end. I actually caught COVID in prison. Yeah, and I remember saying, God, please don't let me die like this. I'm too close, I'm too close, I'm too close. But yeah, it was scary. But yeah, I did get out while like the mask mandate was in effect. I actually had to do a rapid test to even go inside the transitional house and not have to quarantine for 14 days. So that was kind of crazy.
Well, more kudos to you. It's like, wow. Amazing.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I'm curious it went from like you were researching to a friendship, like a working relationship, and now you're friends, how that happened and how you met and started
It was kind of a friendship first, honestly. We met. I was like the bar manager of like an event, like a New Year's Eve event, and David was one of the security guards, and nobody came to the event, like at all. So I had nothing to do, and David had nothing to do. So we were just sitting around, like chatting, and I didn't know anything about David's background. I just thought he was like a cool guy, and I followed him on Instagram. And then like a month later, David, because David posts a lot of content and has lots of followers, and he posted something, and it was like an hour-long video, sort of basically saying like, for everybody that's just now following me, that doesn't know about my background, this is what it is like. But it was very, like, the reason why I wanted to write the book was, he just spoke about it so eloquently. I mean, you've all been sitting around listening to us, mostly David, for the last hour. Extremely eloquent person, like really just like puts a visual on everything that he's saying. So I was enamored. I'd written one like investigative book beforehand about a really heavy topic. I was looking for another one, and as soon as I watched that video, I was like, Jesus, I have to write a book about this guy. So I messaged David, and then we met up at an event maybe like 2 weeks later, and we just like had a beer and just like chatted and got to know each other even further. But we were friends first, I would say.
Yeah, it definitely was instant. You know, when I met him, it was New Year's Eve. It rained, so that's why a lot of people didn't come. And as doing security, I was kind of happy because I'm like, I don't gotta, tell a lot of people not. Because one of the things was don't let people hang outside. But it was like the rain, Mother Nature did that for me. So, I got to, talk to Killian as well as Connor, and it was just like the same way he felt like I was a good person. Like I was like, this dude is like genuinely like a really cool person. And then also he asked me to like help him get some swag, so I was like, I gotta take him under my wing and make him a little cool. I'm still working on his being a Red Sox fan.
We had my mom was visiting LA like 3 months ago, and we all got coffee. And the fucker, as we were leaving, he yells across the street and he's like, "Hey Killian, like if you need me to tell you how to get some girls, just like give me a call." And my mom, and he walks around, my mom's like, "Are you serious?" Like, still get shied over to this day.
I like to look out for those. But no, you see how we joke around with each other. Like it feels like I've been knowing the guy for a long, long time, and like together as a team, like we've been very, very like dynamic. Like he's a hustler, I'm a hustler, and we just been like just grinding it out. Like so yeah, it just kind of the friendship was very natural, and I think that's what made the book process that much more easier because it was like, I don't mind talking to you about this because I already think you're pretty cool.
Yeah, it definitely made it a lot easier, and the book features a lot of like extremely personal moments for Dave, and I was extremely thankful. Like I say to Dave, even till this day, like you allowed me to write your story. It wasn't the other way around. Like I was the one that approached him, and he was extremely I'm very gracious at the like sort of the vulnerability, for lack of a better word, like. But it does make the book a lot better because it's true. And then also like you see Dave coming out the other side, and I don't know, I would encourage you to like read the book and understand like exactly what the milestones were and what he went through, and then take a look at where Dave is now, and you'll be like, holy crap, like this guy has come a long way. So
Any more questions? No? Thank you guys all for coming. I really
Yeah,
appreciate
thank you very
it.
much.
We've got some copies of the book if anybody wants to buy them, and I'm sure David and Killian will sign for you.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
No. I do. My goal is to be a motivational speaker, so that is my goal. I want to be like a huge motivational speaker.
This is great. Thank you so much.
Are you gonna write a book?
I actually am. Yeah, I'm working on it now.
Yeah.
I would love to have it here.
Let me know.
No problem, no problem. Thanks again for having us. Let me go ahead and end this live stream.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, go for it.
Yo, shout out to the whole Army. Thank you guys for support. Thank you guys for being right here, man. I love you guys. Never stop. Believe in yourself. Dreams come true. Look at me. I was just in prison, and now I'm having talks. People are interested in my story the same way. If you want better, you just got to do better. Stay great above hate. I love you. It's your boy DJ.
Oh,
Make
yeah.
yourself available for that as well.